Next session, that is panel discussion 1, striking the balance, acquiring new customers and fostering existing relationships. I introduce our moderator, Mr. Prashant Choudhary, Head of Marketing at Fino Payments Bank Limited. Mr. Choudhary is a seasoned professional known for his exceptional delivery capabilities across diverse industries. With a natural affinity for technology-led solutions, he excels in managing projects, programs, and cross-functional operations. His expertise lies in loyalty, customer experience, and marketing, where his customer-centric approach and outside-in perspectives drive successes. I request Mr. Prashant Choudhary to please join on the dais. Applause for Mr. Prashant Choudhary. I also invite our fellow panelist on the stage, Mr. Anil Nandakumar, Global Head of Digital Marketing at Birla Carbon, Mr. Krunal Desai, Director of Marketing, Subscription Revenue and Profit and Loss at Z5 Global, Mr. Navin Thakur, Senior Vice President of Marketing, Sales and CRM at Vascon Engineers Limited, Mr. Zahid Gawandi, Vice President and Head of Marketing and Corporate Communications at SBI Securities, and Mr. Manoj Khadkikar, Head of Sales and Marketing at Godrej Securities Limited. A huge round of applause for the panelists.
I think everyone had their little break for 10 minutes and fresh in their mind, because this session is going to be a bit interesting and we are going to debate. We are not going to give you a can. Okay, we are going to debate with our panelists today. And we have also kept some time at the end of the session for your questions. We would like to make it as interactive and as grilling as possible. So if you have any questions, if you think something bogging your mind in the subject matter that we are going to discuss, I urge you to feel free to raise your questions at the end of the session. And I'm sure our panelists, with their experience, they would be able to throw some lights and, they can explain you more in details. Yeah? Does that sound good? Thank you. So let's begin with this debate of acquisition versus retention. I remember when, as part of my study in 2009-2010, I had done a study, as part of the projects we had done study, and I had reached out to about 120 odd companies, including small, medium enterprises, as well as the large enterprises. The basic objective of this study was to understand what percentage of one's marketing budget, it was more pertains to marketing at that point in time, what percentage of marketing budget is spent on retention, customer retention activity. And this study threw an interesting number, which was less than 20%. But that was the case in 2009-2010. 12 years later, fast forward, today I am not sure what that percentage stands at. Even I am keen to learn, and keen to learn from the fellow panelists as well as from you. Anyone has some good insights here, please feel free to throw those insights. Yeah. So some of the questions what we are going to address today in our discussions are, is the acquisition and retention is the real battle, or is there something else? Is acquisition more important than retention, or retention is more important than acquisition? I understand that's, as per the industry, we may, the goalpost may change. However, in an overall scenario, when you have a typical, say, about 10 crores, say, income tax payers in this country, say about 70 odd millions credit cards, and so forth, that's a limited universe that one operates in. So in that case, whether to retain those customers, everyone is fighting for the same pie. Is that so? And if we are fighting for that pie, then the retention become a critical milestone, or yes or no? So let's move on. I'm not going to give more GAN, and let's move on to the panelists. Let's start let's start with Navin to begin with. Navin comes from an interesting industry, that is Vascon engineers, which is the construction industry. And let's see how the retention versus acquisition battles plays out there. So Navin, the question is, what are the challenges that your industry, or in your experience, business faces, balancing between acquisition and retention?
Sure. Thank you for having me here. Our business are two-pronged. One, we are a construction company, and second, we are a real estate company. So we are addressing two different type of customers. One is B2B, the other is B2C. In B2B, we cater to a lot of government as a client, where about 80% of business comes from the government companies. So managing that part over there in B2B is much easier, because we have to manage certain specific people. When it comes to B2C, it is, the dilemma is that if I have sold a property which is about 1.5 crore to somebody today, after a month I can't go back and sell another one to him. So for us, that cycle is pretty long. We have to manage relationships for a very long time with these customers, and also, take care of things where we understand that when did I sell him last, and when would this person be in a position to buy another. For this, you have to be in regular conversation with customers, and which is a very tough task, because engaging with customers today, in today's busy schedule, it's very difficult how to find time with them, and nobody likes to get bothered every now and then. So here, we were talking about, the earlier speaker was talking about people working in silos. And that's where organization needs to work on that. How do we eliminate these silos, and who would be responsible? So there has to be a responsible person. While, there are customer care teams, there are sales team, marketing teams, not every organization have customer retention or a loyalty team. This job is either given to the customer care or to the sales, but it is not focused in every organizations. There are certain organizations which does it, but not everyone. So hence, responsibility is very important. And for that, accountability, responsibility, these are key factors which will help an organization to figure out that how do we take this ahead. The other thing is, as an organization, when you are trying to launch something new, or you're coming with a campaign, everyone's focus is on how do I acquire new, how do I focus. There's very less focus on going back to loyalty and customer retention. For us, it gives us healthy 15 to 20% sales from loyalty and retention. Still, I can tell you that, the focus of a marketing team and sales team is always running for the new acquisition. And rightly so, because as I said that it's a high ticket item, I can't go back every now and then. So hence the focus is over there, but still we are able to fetch this thing. And it's purely relationship building. Our relationship with customers are 20, 25, 30 years old. Customers who have bought us 30 years back are still buying with us. So relationships is key for business like us, and that's where our focus is.
Thank you, Navin. That was insightful. That's 15 to 20% are generated through loyalty efforts. That's a pretty good number. Let's look at now non-traditional, or the in thing, 21st century, what we call it as. Let's hear from Krunal from Z5.
Yeah. So I think what has happened is digital businesses, digital ecosystem in the past few years has evolved so much, right? Not just in India, but across the world. And COVID sort of has catapulted the adoption in such a big way for digital that today entry and exit barriers for a consumer is so less. right? And hence, it is so important for marketing organizations to ensure that the consumer is retained, right? Because, see, there are few parameters that we sort of follow, right? In terms of acquisition, there is the cost of acquiring a consumer, or what you call it as CAC. There is cost of acquisition, and those costs are there, which you have to keep optimizing. And on the retention front, there are also certain key parameters that we sort of follow and we sort of keep a track of. Is the lifetime value that you get from the customer, which is the LTV, and the average revenue that you get per user, right? Because acquiring a consumer is so expensive that you want the consumer to stay on your platform, right? Because that's how you can actually earn more money. And at the same time, you also develop your portfolio enough so that the consumer sort of stays on and retains. So from a digital perspective, I think there is equal effort that is put in both for customer acquisition as well as retention. Because in an OTT or the industry, the competition is so extensive, the exit barriers are so high, the consumer can actually pay only for a month or a week and move on to another platform. So from an OTT perspective, it is very, very critical that equal efforts are put for acquisition and retention. At the same time, obviously, there are efforts being put in not just from a perspective of marketing. There are efforts, a lot of efforts put in from a perspective of product, tech, right? So a lot of people are talking about AI. AI as a tool is actually getting implemented a lot in the digital ecosystem, and we are actually seeing that getting implemented, right? And first, where it's getting implemented is more from a perspective of retaining the consumer, right? Because the experience that the consumer gets on the platform has to be improved, and because we have so much of content, consumers coming, so many events that gets fired on a digital platform, the AI definitely helps, right? Because you want to give that personalized experience to the consumer, and that is where we are seeing AI getting implemented a lot. That also is an initiative to drive retention, right? So hence, even though marketing spends on retention maybe less than 10% or less than 15%, but from a product tech perspective, the investment that is going in is quite big.
Thank you. Thank you, Krunal. Now I'll come to like all we do is like we trade nowadays. Everybody is in the share market, I'm sure. So we'll hear from Zahid. How does at SBI Securities or in the trading market, your acquisition strategies are different than retention strategies? Is there a difference in the first place? If so, what are those?
Yeah, hi. Thanks. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. So basically, acquisition and retention, they both are two sides of the same coin. But they both have different goals, therefore they require different strategies, right? So when we say at SBI, our acquisition is primarily two paths, because we are part of the bank, one of the largest banks in India. We have so SBI has about 25,000 branches, but we are present in 3,500 branches, where our one person is there physically present in the branch to acquire customers, right? So that is a catchment area acquisition that we have, right? Which is a physical form. Of course, the acquisition happens digitally because everybody is equipped with an iPad, and there is a app through which they onboard the customer. The second part is online acquisition, where we have our marketing team and a digital team where we run performance campaigns to acquire open market customers. There we compete with everybody, Zerodhas of the world, the Grows of the world, and other banks. So that's a different model we have. So it's a combination of physical plus digital when it comes to acquisition. Now, key parameters when we look at acquisition, we look at lead generation, how many leads have been generated, what's the lead conversion, and therefore what's the cost per acquisition, right? When it comes to retention, again, the focus is different. Acquisition, the focus is to acquire new customers. In retention, the focus is, of course, to get more share of the wallet from the same customer, right? Rather than going for a new customer, it's best to retain the customer through different communications. Now, in retention, the goals basically are customer lifetime value we look at customer churn rate, and we look at the net promoter score. These are the parameters we look at. Now in retention, basically, we have invested heavily in tech. While we don't spend marketing monies on retention, we spend money on tech. So having said that, we have our app, chatbot, which is AI ML enabled. Right now, it speaks, interacts in 6 different languages, which is available to the customer. Most of the customer queries, like say 70%, is handled by chatbot. That is part of the retention strategy. We have in-app notification app and in-app push notification app, which is more engaged we use, where we notify customers and we cross-sell, upsell to retain the customers. So also we have a business intelligence unit where we analyze the data and see who's about to churn. So SEBI tells customers who don't trade for a year, you're supposed to make them dormant. Now, on the 10th month onwards, we start interacting with that customer, and we give them a lot of offers, opportunities, interaction, where we try and get them. So far our success rate in terms of retention, people who are going to get defunct or dormant, has been 15%, right? So which is a good percentage when it comes to financial services brand. So these are the things that we do in terms of the retention strategies and acquisition strategies.
Thank you, Zahid. That was insightful. Now, moving on to the same question, how the retention strategies differs from the acquisition one. Let's look at from a different angle, which is Birla Carbon, completely different industry.
Thank you. So I want to take a step back. Strategies for acquisition, and I'm going to talk commodity now, right? When you're a market leader, a global market leader, you have a certain footprint in certain geographies. What becomes really important is which customer do I want to acquire? A little different from the B2C side of it, where, hey, I want to acquire as many customers as possible, retain so that you can earn as much as you can from them from a lifetime perspective. Yes, lifetime perspective is very important, but hey, our set of commodity that we can sell is finite, it's not infinite. So how much can we make more becomes important. So what we do, and this is not just from my present perspective. When I was with Tata Sons, we had built multiple models for some of our commodity companies, where if there is a particular lead, we did lead scoring based on market demand dynamics, number one, which sector they're coming from, number one. Number two, what is the propensity to buy? When we say propensity to buy, we used a lot of market data, research data to actually segment. In ABG, we have a CVM segmentation of about six segments, depending on their propensity to buy, propensity on innovation, various parameters. So where do they fall under that? Once that happens, what is their history of acquisition of the same commodity? Is there a propensity to cross-sell, upsell, all of that? So there is a detailed model that's created, and we get a score. So if there is a particular lead, say our footprint is X, say in South America, and there is a new lead that comes in with this is a model of 0 to 10. So if you have a score of say 6, it's a green. So the probability is we connect, we understand what is the propensity. Anything below 6 automatically becomes an amber, where the 6 and above is what we hit first, and the probability of conversion is higher. Anything below, we don't. So that's the model that we play with. I'd love to discuss details of it, but we don't have the time. Now, what we also need to understand is now on the retention part. I'm going to sound really pompous, but we have a forced churn percentage. We make sure that there is a certain percentage of churn that is healthy in the organization so that we can maximize value, right? If I am selling for X today, how can I increase that by X plus 1, X plus 2? That's how it is. So the forced churn, again, it's not that we tell a customer, yeah, we're not going to work with you anymore. That's not the point. The point is, how do we first increase the perceived value of the product that we have? Okay, so what is perceived value? That will also depend on the segment they're falling under. Example, if it is, say, a supply security segment, right? So, okay, supply security is important in a particular segment, in a particular geography. If we know the demand dynamics is changing, supply dynamics changing, our supply variations are high or low. Again, we have a model based on that. There is a certain score. We then engage on a regular basis with that particular customer to first negotiate and get them up to a particular score to make sure that they are profitable enough for us to engage. If not, we find other diverse ways of serving them, not directly, but indirectly. So they might go out of our portfolio, but indirectly we'll still be selling to them, not directly. So we don't spend as much money and time and effort in actually retaining them. We save that. Although our spend, you mentioned about tentatively 20% is on retention, we barely spend anything above 10%. In fact, lesser. Again, that's because of the brand and the product and the segment that we play in. So that's what we do.
That was pretty interesting. So when there are infinite sources vis-a-vis infinite sources, I think that's the key. Let me come to the Godrej safe. What we know, once we buy a safe, it goes on for generations, as we all know. Now, what is the retention you're going to do, and how do we going to play? Even I'm not sure. So let's hear from Manoj. How do you leverage, say, technology? Because it's a traditional manufacturing setup. How do you leverage technology in your acquisition and retention efforts? And what is that retention that you do at Godrej Security Solutions? What do you do?
So one of the biggest challenges that we, of course, have is about retention. We are a 125 years old company, so we've been building safes for the last 125 years. And we have so many customers who have been keeping their safes for the last 50s. It's been passing on from generation to generation. So what do you mean by retention of that customer? He's already a customer. His great-grandfather was the customer for us. But I think it points out to a little bit different. See, when you're looking at our market, I'm talking specifically around Godrej Security, we have a whole spectrum of offerings and a different way of looking at the customers. We are the market leaders as far as safes are concerned. And therefore, when you're looking at either retaining customer, it doesn't, so to say, retain the customer, or how do you acquire a new customer? Because the market is growing at a certain rate. We are, of course, growing much faster. But that whole thing is that our focus on customer acquisition is not about getting somebody else's market share. It is more of building the market, increasing the use cases. And that's the responsibility and the thing that a market leader actually has to do. That's one part of our business portfolio. The other portfolio is electronic security, which is a cluttered market, commoditized market, and we are a new player. And that's where customer acquisition also plays a very important role. So when you look at what should be our plan and should we be focusing on retention, acquisition, you also have to, it's a whole matrix of not just what product, what market, and also where has the product reached in its whole cycle. Not just from a technology point of view, but also the customer's understanding of the product. So let me give you an example. Some 15 years back, when you wanted a computer, and that time major chunk of the computers were being assembled. At that time, when you wanted a computer, you went to a partner or a dealer and told him you wanted a computer. And he would advise you what to buy. at that time, it was very critical for the partner to know the things. The customer, all he wanted was a computer. Come to today's date, when every kid also knows which specification of the laptop he wants, and all he wants to do is to buy it at whatever price that he is getting online. So as the products move to different stages of their cycle, the kind of activity that a company does also depends. Therefore, right now, when we look at our market, the focus is to reassure the customer that the deliverables of brand Godrej is what he's getting in each and every product that he buys, be it a safe or be it a CCTV camera. And then to ensure that he does not have a dissonance between one category to the other category, his experience in terms of information, the way that he interacts with the partners, online, offline, has to be seamless and same, consistent. So that's the kind of efforts that we put. And therefore, if I were to look at what should our budget be and all that, I think it's very, very difficult for us to really pinpoint and put. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Manoj. So let's look at the data analytics part, because we all know data analytics plays a very critical role in acquisition, retention efforts, and it's a key pillar. Let's understand from Krunal, how does it plays out? How does it support?
Sure. So again, I think if you look at acquisition and retention, right, there is so much data. If you look at just Z5, we are present in 190 plus countries. It's a digital platform, so no matter where you are in the world, you can access Z5, right? We interact on a monthly basis with about 80 to 90 million customers, right? That's the kind of base that we have. We launch almost about 5 to 6 new content, movies, originals on a monthly basis. And episodes are released on a daily basis. And when I say episodes, these are across our channels, right? From Z Marathi, Z TV, Z Tamil. So if you look at the amount of data that we sort of deal with, it's humongous, right? At the same time, it's also good for us because now we exactly know what is the consumer touch points, what are the consumption habits, what genre, a lot of slice and dice that you can do from a data perspective. From an acquisition perspective, obviously there are the Googles and the Facebooks of the world who actually help you out because there is so much of data that they have, right? Because they basically can, across multiple channels, the campaigns that you do, you can actually derive a lot of consumption data and optimize your campaigns, right? And that is where we essentially use a lot of data analytics and tools. Going forward, we are also looking at specific medium-wise data analytics, right? Because a consumer interacts with a certain medium in a very different way. So hence, when we send out email or notification, there is a certain kind of tool that is used for data analytics. Similarly, for social media, where social listening is important, which gives you an understanding of the sentiment of a particular content launch or for the brand. On the retention side, right, there are again multiple tools that we use that help us gather a lot of data and insights, right? Right from consumption, where we use, say, a tool like Conviva, which basically measures each and every event that a consumer does, right? Which content does the consumer watch, till what time, what is the watch time, what is the watch time per viewer, all of those data points, to subscriptions, what kind of pack price, and then eventually also look at the final numbers in terms of revenue, consumption, churn, all of those things. Now, the idea is to ensure that we use data analytics at every stage, right? Right from how we call it is the top funnel, the mid funnel, and the bottom funnel, like how it's called, like MOFU, TOFU, BOFU, which in acquisition, and essentially keep optimizing your campaigns, right? And then on the retention side, we basically try and utilize these data points to ensure that the retention reduces, retention improves and churn reduces, right? Because at the end of the day, our churn And industry-wide OTT, the churn is easily about 40 to 60%, right, in that range, which is a huge number. So the idea is to try and reduce it as much as possible, because obviously OTT is an industry, or digital as an ecosystem is an industry where the churn is very high. So that is where we use data analytics to basically make informed decisions. Going forward, I feel a lot of this data analytics will be fed into AI, which will help us develop models to sort of put a lot of processes in place which are optimized by the machine itself, right? And help us get better retention rates and reduce churn wherever possible. So a lot of implementation is happening at that front, where a lot of data is getting fed into machine learning, and hence implementing into AI, and hence improving a lot of automated processes.
Thank you, Krunal. Now, coming from digital experience, which is led by data, so that's where your retention and the acquisition pillars or the strategies are based out of. In the traditional environment like Birla Carbon, where I'm sure it's more of one-on-one relationship than more of a digitally led relationship. How do you ensure that there is I understand there is a model, propensity model, what you have created, but there is still a seamless experience that needs to be given to the customer, while acquiring him or her. So how do you ensure at Birla?
So, yes, it's a very personal business, but believe me, data and analytics has deep-rooted itself in commodities as well, right? Especially where, when I started, when you need to know which is the customer you want to sell and how you want to sell. What is the stickiness that you want to maintain versus what the stickiness of the customer is. You very correctly said, I think 10 or 15 years back, it was ruled by human feelings, right? Where you'd said, नहीं मुझे पता है इसको क्या चाहिए, वो परचेस हेड को मैं पहचानता हूँ, औसम है, यही खरीदेगा और कोई नहीं खरीद सकता और ये बेस्ट प्राइस में खरीदेगा. Fair enough. Yeah, relationships do matter, but believe me, today when we go into a discussion or a negotiation, we have, as I shared initially, unfortunately I'm not open to share exact data, because of the various data models based on the segments. So our first discussion is tier 1 segments. What is the UVM, as we call it, which is profitability in normal terms? What is the UVM? What is the top line? What is the bottom line? What is the scope for cross-sell? What is the scope for, again, what is the demand elasticity and price elasticity? Both. Let me give you an example. Today, if you're quoting X $1,000 per metric ton, is there a propensity in the market that I can actually increase it to X plus 5, or I'm going to kill the deal? How are you going to figure that out? We have a model. Again, it's learning. It's not perfect. But price elasticity of demand versus the actual acquisition is first learned. Okay? It gives a score. Based on that intelligence is when you go to the customer again, not just the purchase guy. As an organization, and that's one of the best practices I was planning on touching later, but I reveal it now already. Based on the model, you then don't just go and speak to the purchase guy, you actually speak to the various foxes. We call them foxes, right? These are influencers. The decision maker might be the purchase guy, but then the influencer will be the head of strategy, the head of marketing, various touch points. These are all whom we call foxes in sales, right? This I learned from my Tata days. You just don't go to the first decision maker, you actually cascade down the entire organization, identify your foxes and hit them. And that is where digital marketing comes very strong again. Where once we identify the go-to-market strategy, the digital team, the digital marketing team comes on board, says, okay, we know the pattern of what data this guy is consuming. Okay, we've got 5 channels. He's gone to channel A, B, and C. He's downloaded this brochure. He's gone to competition to gather this information. Okay, that means these guys are actually looking for something. Now, when we now go to the customer, with obviously, sir, हम आपको पहचानते हैं, आप हमारी जिगरी हैं, हम 40 साल से आपके साथ काम कर रहे हैं, plus the data that, sir, we realize you are actually going into this product, this is a new product that's going for, we know you have downloaded this, and this, how can we help you? The customer retention and the value addition to the customer retention, we have seen an increase of at least 15% higher year on year.
That's good. That's nice. So let's move on to Zahid and ask that how do you personalize the experience when you deal with the masses? Is there any personalization efforts going on? And if yes, then how do you implement that? Are there any challenges that you face in those?
Okay, so Prashant, that's a very interesting question. So in today's market, when the customer is so diverse, for us, the customer age group is anywhere from 25 to 65. It's quite diverse in terms of the age group, in terms of the demographics and psychographics as well. So gone are those days where one size fits all communication works. Gone are the days where you spray and pray the communication works, right? So what has happened is personalization has evolved, and one-to-many communication doesn't work anymore. So it is one-on-one communication which works. When I say one-on-one, which means we are personalizing to each and every individual. When we send mailers, when we do campaigns, when we send SMSs, it is customized to that specific customer in terms of the name, in terms of what products he's buying from us. So when we personalize, we also look at 2 factors. One is how they deal with us in terms of their frequency and recency. Depending on that, we have invested in an org-wide CRM tool, and we have analytics of each and every customer in terms of the frequency and recency. And we look at those data, come up with those insights, and offer those tailored products. And therefore, the communication is very tailored and specific to those customers, which we also help in cross-selling and upselling those customers. For example, suppose you have not been trading with us for, say, about 7 months or 8 months, and there's, say, X amount of money lying in your Demat account. We will send you a notification saying, Mr. Prashant, your Demat account number so-and-so has a balance of so-and-so amount, which is going to be marked dormant in next 2 months, right? So it creates a very, a special communication to them, and they get alerted and they start acting on it. And when we send such kind of communications, the mailer rate or the SMS open rate, it's extremely high for us, and it works very, very well. Also in terms of when we say personalization, we do a lot of remarketing campaigns. So I will also know data of how many people are opening my app, which pages they are going in my app. Similarly for website, similarly for my DIY journey, when I onboard them, I know what are the drop journeys, which pages they have dropped, when they have dropped, and I tailor my communication in my remarketing strategies, whether it is in-app, on the web, or other communication channels that we use, and it works wonderfully for us.
Thank you, Zahid. Manoj, I understand you have 2 sets of customers. One is the dealer network, which is more on a B2B side, and then there is a customer direct channel as well you have. So how do you manage the differences between the 2 in terms of, say, acquiring the new customers? So something you acquire through the dealer network vis-a-vis a direct network. Are there any differences? Is there any different thought process that happens at the boardroom?
So when you talk about B2B and B2C kind of thing, one of course is this go-to-market and which way is the right way to engage with the customer. But also a little bit, one step back, so to say, is when you're actually looking at what type of customers we cater to. So let me give you an example of safes. right? You have a consumer buying a safe for keeping jewelry at home is a B2C, but a bank buying vaults and SDLC is something which is a B2B. And the whole process of what is the need, what is the kind of, who are the influencers, the foxes that you have, it totally varies from these two kind of things. So when you look at a B2B, one is, of course, it's more of tech-driven specifications, regulations, some kind of government directives, and of course, the service levels that you have. So when we are looking at that segment, all these, besides of course the product, are the things that define what should be the right way to approach. As far as consumers are concerned, again, a little bit, of course, it varies from category to category, but it's more emotional. It's more on the spot, spur buying. It could be related to what kind of need in one's life cycle does a customer want to buy a certain product. And therefore, the way to engage with him is totally different. So that's as far as product and the way to look at it. The go-to market, in terms of should we be looking at a customer directly through the online mode or the offline, at least from our side, what we of course seen is in the kind of category where we are in, it's not a category where the customer would want, I'm talking about the consumer part of it. The customer doesn't want to show off that I've bought a safe. So it's something that he requires, wants it, but will always be, that safe will be somewhere in the bedroom, hidden somewhere, and he will not talk about it to his neighbors also. So how do you then create that awareness that he should be your ambassador to talk about it? So those are the challenges that we keep facing. But therefore, what we've seen is to create an awareness. In the consumer space, a lot of customers, the penetration of safes is very less in India. And one big chunk is because most of the customers have a need, but they don't have that urge to buy it because there's no tipping point for them to really go. So they are fence sitters. So the communication that we do is more of telling them why you should be looking at it. Once they have got an inkling, and that's the online part of it, and then they need to look and feel that, and that's where our offline channel works, and therefore our penetration across India and what all places. And then you talk about use cases, different use cases. So that's the way that we actually cater to from the B2C part of it. B2B, like I said, is more spec-driven kind of engagement, kind of relationships, what customer wants either from us or from the partners that they cater to. So a bank would want to buy a solution from a partner who is also giving some other products. He's a registered vendor. He's compliant with all the regulatory requirements. So the kind of engagement that we do for a B2B, of course, is totally different from a channel perspective also and the product perspective also.
Awesome. Navin, I'm coming to you now. So from your point of view, when you acquire a customer, obviously there is a cost of acquisition that plays a huge part. In your industry, how the acquisition costing spans out, okay? How do you measure that? Is this the acquisition cost or acquisition efforts are optimum, or is it below benchmark or above benchmark whatsoever? How do you arrive at that?
Yeah, so every industry has some thumb rules that they play on. This comes from the experience, when once you start working in that industry. So for us also, there are thumb rules for different categories of product that we sell: affordable, mid-segment, luxury. It's very easy to measure in our segment because, we know that what kind of monies we are spending. So whether it is through CPL or CPQL, cost per lead, qualified lead, at the end of the day, what matters is cost to conversion. So cost to conversion is an important factor for us that, with certain media, if we are using that media, what is our cost to conversion? A print ad might give me 100 leads, but if my conversion out of that is 60%, compared to a digital, which gives me a 2% conversion, which media will I work more? So it's very easy to say that print works better because it's giving 60%, but at what cost? So cost of conversion is the important key for us, and it's easy to measure for us in our industry, and of course we keep a tab on it whenever campaigns are running. Every day tabs are kept on that thing so that we don't go out of control and we take right measures. And on the other hand, cost of retention is slightly dicey to measure because, in our segment, cost of retention is what we are getting our own ex-customers through loyalty program or through direct relationships. As I said, for our relationships are 20-25 years old. So if I'm getting a conversion through a relationship, I can't put a cost to it. So hence determining whether my cost of acquisition through loyalty retention is XYZ is difficult, but cost of acquisition of new customer is very easy. At the same time, I'll give you an example from another industry that I've worked. I'm talking about a industry which is electricity distribution. Okay, leave Bombay aside. What do you think is the cost of acquisition? Customer will come to you, right? They don't have an option. What is the cost of retention? No, you cut the connection, he will come and pay penalty and get the connection again, right? Bombay is an exception. When I used to work over here with the brand Reliance Energy, and then the rules changed. Till then, the scenario was this, that customer will come to me. Then it was open that any other discom can also come and serve you. So for us at Reliance Energy, challenge was how do we retain our high value customers? Because that was the cream. That's where those guys were paying higher revenues to us, managing less number of customers, getting higher 80-20 principle. So we had the team of account managers who were out in the market. And when it comes to retention, brand, we discussed that brand plays a very important role. What as a brand have you done with your customers when there was a monopoly? Okay, for us it helped to a certain extent because we tried to make life of consumer easier while we were in a monopoly state also. We made bills more interesting and easy to read. We moved the customer care center from the old traditional queuing up on the outside in the sun to a air-conditioned customer care centers. A lot of the call center came in picture where a lot of things got resolved over the phone itself. So while our teams were going out, all these things helped them to retain retail customers for sure. The other customers also got, we got help from that as well. Cost of retention came in the picture when this scenario came in. Because then our teams had to go to housing societies by societies and making presentations and telling them why you should not switch, why you should stay back. And here is where the entire thing changes from industry to industry. From a zero cost of retention to having a cost.
Thank you. Sorry, we are just up. Can I have just 5 minutes to take the questions? 3 questions. Okay. Yeah? Thank you. So, I'm not going to conclude anything. I'm just going to give that time to you. So, anyone, any questions for the panelists? Hard, soft questions, whichever. Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Okay, so it's not a question, but rather a clarification that from this discussion or debate, what I have understood is retention is not one team activity. It's an entire journey, customer journey, what plays a role to retain a customer. Now, if we see the cost of retention throughout the journey and putting the cost of retention to one team will vary.
Yes, you're right.
Which one should be considered? Or which one should we opt?
Prashant, can I answer that?
You want to take it, please?
So your question is retention is not a single department function, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I mean, there are two ways, right? Either we put the retention to one particular team or we put the retention throughout the customer journey.
Okay, so it is not a one function responsibility.
Yeah.
When we say retention, we are talking particularly from the brand perspective.
Yeah.
The customer want to be retained with that particular brand. So how the brand behaves at different touch points is very, very important from retention perspective. When I say different touch points, what are those touch points? For me as a digital marketer, my customer journey is a touch point. My website is a touch point. My app is a touch point. Then we have a customer center, customer service department, which manages the chatbot, which manages the call center. So every interaction there is a stepping stone for retention, right? Similarly, my salespeople who interact with the customer for the first time, where we call the moment of truth, when the customer comes direct contact with the brand and experiences the brand firsthand, that is a retention point of contact. So there are different touch points when it comes to retention, right? While marketing strategies are different for retention, there are different touch points also which help in retaining the customer, if that answers your question.
Yeah, certainly.
I think more from there, it is about how the customer's experience through his journey while interacting with you or with his last purchase is more important. Because if that journey has been good, you will be able to sell more, or he will be referring you more. So if not for us, a client might not buy from us, but he can refer me more if his experience with us is better. So it's the journey.
Yeah, sure. So.
Time's up, is it?
Yeah, time's up, unfortunately.
I just wanted to add on the B. So when when it's B2C, when it's consumer management versus account management, it's different. Okay. In account management, we always say you have to have a customer owner. Otherwise, मैं customer service वाला हूँ, वहाँ उसने मेरे को आके पेला, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ? I don't have the responsibility. I don't have the strength to do anything. हाँ ठीक है, pricing reduce करो. It's not my game, right? So in B2C account management, it's always recommended that there is a customer owner whose neck is on the line. When it comes to B2C, obviously all these touch points make a huge difference, right? To holding on to a customer, but then your strategy will differ from FMCG to various other points in the industry. So it's not a one cloth fits all. Absolutely
Sure.
not.
We can take this now offline if we can take this offline. We are available. So, sorry, there's
Can I ask one quick question? One quick question. Like my colleague said that it's a journey, right? So, customer is on a verge of just moving out. So what is one quick tip that will help me to, get that customer back?
So, okay, just a generic answer. If you have made a mistake and you know you have made a mistake, go and say sorry. That's the best way to do it.
Not that works every time, right?
Sorry?
That won't work every time, correct?
It does work. Most of the time it works. Trust me. If you accept proactively that you made a mistake and you do that, customers are more than willing to forgive you.
Okay.
Okay, more than willing to forgive you. Trust me. And it works across the industries.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks.
I think if you...
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists.
Break or lunch break. Thank you. So thanks a lot to the moderator and panelists for sharing their insights on the panel discussion, striking the right balance, acquiring new customers and fostering existing relationships. For the felicitation, I would like to invite on the dais Mr. Uday Bhosle, Head of Customers Care at Hamilton Housewares Private Limited.